My name is Mark Brantley, and I, at this point in our history, am the leader of the Concerned Citizens Movement, having taken over as leader in 2017 from the Honorable Vance Winkworth Amory, who went before me and who now sits as a senior minister in the federal cabinet. I want to start by reminding all of us that 5 years ago, many people thought that this would not be possible. Indeed, when we launched Team Unity, there was a sense in some quarters that it was a marriage purely of convenience. And one, in a way, could understand why some may have been of that view, because never before in the history of St. Kitts and Nevis have political parties come together quite in this way. We have, and I am fond of reminding everyone, gone at each other in the parliament, those of us who used to be there. And I remind Dr. Harris all the time that there was no more formidable opponent when he sat on that side and when we got up to say something on the opposition benches. It was a time in our history when there was a considerable degree of division and divisiveness. And we had a choice to make. And that choice was to continue in that vein or to try a different approach. And we were forced to sit down and to take stock and to decide amongst ourselves that we would seek to try a different approach in the country and to put away past hurts and past insults, past differences, and to come together in an unprecedented way. And Dr. Harris, who came out of Labour, was chosen to lead this effort. You have heard from the Honorable Sean Richards, the leader of PAM. And many people said PAM and Labour could never mix, like oil and water. But we are here today, through the grace of God and the strength of the people of this country, to say that Team Unity was always real. It was always real. It was always intended to be for the benefit of all of our people. Now, I bring a unique perspective to Team Unity because I come from Nevis. And we all know that Kittitians and Nevisians have always lived well together. We've intermarried. Many Kittitians can trace their roots to Nevis. Many of us sitting in this room can claim a parent or grandparent who hails from Nevis. But at the political level, we've always had a problem. And it is true to say that we have never quite got along politically. And that political problem always seems to have been exacerbated whenever there was a Labour administration in Bastia. And so, coming from Nevis, we not only had to overcome the political divide, the political party divide, we also had to deal with the weight of history. And that weight of history was one where the two islands never quite functioned as a country. And my own dream in joining Team Unity, my own aspiration, if you will, was that we ought to get to a point where all the talents of our country, whether those talents came from Molyneux or Market Shop, Craddock Road or Keon, that all the talents of the country had to be harnessed if the country was to move forward. That is my dream, it is my aspiration, and I think it will be a matter for you, the members of the press and the electorate, to determine whether or not we have made progress in that regard. I am here today as a Nevisian, requested by the Honorable Prime Minister to join this historic press conference of the three party leaders, to say that never before in the history of our country has the relationship been as good as it is today. Never before. Now, is the relationship perfect? No relationship is perfect. Christians sin sometimes. Husbands and wives have difficulties sometimes. It is the nature of human beings to have difficulties. But it is testimony to the strength of this unity that whatever differences have existed have always been resolved through dialogue, through conversations in the cabinet, because that's where you take views and exchange views. And that, whilst many predicted our demise, and I smile to myself sometimes in my own quiet moments, I say, the death of Team Unity has been greatly exaggerated over the years. We were told when we got into office that we wouldn't last 6 weeks, then 6 months. Now I'm hearing them say we won't last 20 years. The truth is that those opposed to this new paradigm never quite understood what we were seeking to achieve. And what we were seeking to achieve is bigger than any individual. In fact, there is some evidence to sustain that, because when Team Unity was formed and came together, the Honorable Vance Amory, senior statesman, was leading the CCM team. He passed over to me. And there was no relaxation in the enthusiasm for Team Unity. And so even through that transition, we recognize that the Concerned Citizens Movement as a political party on the island of Nevis remained committed to this ideal. Because I will tell you candidly, we have seen what the other side looks like, and it has not been pleasant for Nevis. And we have now seen what Team Unity looks and feels like, and we like it. We like it. It is far better for the people of Nevis. Imagine, if you will, speaking as a Nevisian, that it took us 32 long years, 32 years, 3 decades, plus 2, for a Nevisian to emerge as a diplomat for this country. 32 years, reflect on that for a moment. With all the PhDs and the master's degrees and all the people that the beautiful island of Nevis has produced, nobody was ever deemed qualified enough to represent our country abroad. Team Unity changed that. There was a lot of talk about the SIDF. In fact, one Calypsonian and King Bingi in Nevis sang a catchy song, said we want the SIDF money. You all remember that? It was an anthem, a rallying cry. Because when the shoe squeeze you, you got to bawl out. Money, I'm told, $1.2 billion flowed through the coffers of the SIDF. Nevis got nothing. And you imagine when you look over and you see your brother pot full and you're dead for hungry, how that must feel. That was our reality. And it took a Team Unity government in 2015 to change that. Because it was only with the coming of Team Unity that the people of Nevis were finally able to put a board member on the SIDF who could take a proposal from the NIA for funding. And I made the point recently, because we opened a new treasury building, a new financial complex in Nevis. And I said and made bold to say that if people pass and call it the SIDF building, that was okay with me. Because if it wasn't for the funding provided by the SIDF, that building, we never know if it could have been realized. When I traveled here this afternoon, I departed from the water taxi pier at Wally. Beautiful pier. You could have a party on it. And that would not have been possible were it not for Team Unity. And the new paradigm, the new sense that Nevis and Nevisians matter too. That for me is important. I look at the boards in the country, the statutory boards, National Bank, National Insurance, Fitzroy Bryant College, you name it. Because we said when we put this Team Unity together, that in order to demonstrate that it was in fact a new paradigm, we did not just need to talk the talk, we had to walk the walk. Because our people had seen and heard promises in the past, and they wanted someone now to deliver on those promises. And it is therefore for you, the members of the press, and for the public to determine whether or not we have delivered. I can tell you, insofar as the island of Nevis is concerned, that we're not going back. We're looking forward. And Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. Deputy Prime Minister, members of the press, I am good at making predictions, you know. Because at Greenlands, I did introduce you and said, I wish to introduce now the next Prime Minister of the country. And the man called Timothy Harris came out. It took a little longer than we had planned because those then in charge kept delaying, but you can't delay the inevitable, and the inevitable came to pass. And so I am not often afforded this big stage. So on this big stage, I will say that the CCM is going to come to Sinkers with 3 seats in the next dispensation. And down here, I believe it would be somewhere 7 or 8. So I am fairly confident that based on the performance that you've had thus far, the leadership that you've had thus far, the togetherness that you've had thus far, that Team Unity will be given another opportunity. And after that, another one too. And I want to say something at this point. Just ring the bell when my time is up. Huh? I want to say something at this point. That never before in the history of this country has any sitting prime minister willingly agreed and introduced legislation to limit his own power. I want you all to reflect on that, because sometimes it's lost. People in power like to hold on to it. We have examples of that right here in our own country, where after 20 years you still have some saying they want more. But here's a man in Timothy Harris who says that Team Unity committed to 2 terms for a prime minister and introduced an historic amendment to the Constitution to limit himself. In other countries, you hear they change the Constitution in the other direction. Where there are term limits, some of them try to remove the term limits so they continue in perpetuity. And it should be known, and when the history is written, it will be said that that measure failed, not because of us, but because those who seem to want to be in power for life voted against the measure, or in this case, never showed up at all when the vote came. All the rest of us said aye, but we didn't have the requisite 2/3, and that is one good reason why the people of St. Kitts and Nevis should strengthen our hand and give us the 2/3 so we could implement those kinds of changes that the country wants and that the country needs. But it ought not to be lost, and perhaps members of the press, who I try to cultivate as my friends, some of you can be unfriendly, but I try nevertheless, that members of the press, you need to write about these things, you know, because these are historic developments. Never before has any leader in this country sought to limit his own power. Never happened. And we have a prime minister who tried to do that. And it was a valiant effort that all of us supported. Defeated by the other side, and perhaps when they have their press conference, you must ask them why. Who there done do 20 years and want more? Who there is afraid of term limits, and for what reason? Looks like someone you carry them out in a box. The reality is that as a team, we have delivered, we continue to deliver. And sometimes when I hear the conversation, I am perplexed by it, because people talk of Team Unity, and then they talk of those that were, almost as if we've had an equal time in government. Team Unity only had 5 years, you know. 1 term, 5 years. That's all we've had. And yet that 5 years stacks up favorably against a record of 20 long years that we had before. And so when I hear now people say, give me another chance so I can implement this and implement that, I say, but after 20 years, what else you have left in the tank? If you have not delivered on your ideas and your commitments in 20 years, well, good God, when are you going to deliver on them again? When? tells me you're not serious. 20 years is almost a generation, you know. I heard it said the other day that some, for the entire voting life, have only known that regime of 20 years. So when you're here now, I still have something that I didn't do. Well, if after 20 years you haven't done it, then I believe that people should not give you any opportunity because you weren't serious about doing it in the first place. We, on the other hand, in 5 years in a manifesto, you can go through and you can tick. We have delivered and delivered. On the island of Nevis, the infrastructure has been improved. We have buildings and various edifices that have emerged as a consequence of having access for the first time in our history to the resources of the Federation. Nobody yet has mentioned the peace and the peace dividend that we are enjoying. But that is significant. All the polling that I've seen shows that the issue of crime that used to be high on everybody's agenda is no longer featuring. The press must write about that, you know. Must write about that. Because the headlines that we used to see, we're no longer seeing. The country that used to be pilloried in the press, now we see a very real opportunity where that too has changed. And so, ladies and gentlemen, all of these gains have flowed, and the point that I really want to make is that they've flowed not just in St. Kitts, not just in Nevis, they've flowed across the nation. Across the nation. And that to me is really what Team Unity was always about. The ability, the effort to fix that divide, to bring St. Kitts and Nevis closer, to bring our people closer. And when we sit as a country and we wish the best doctor, or the best lawyer, or the best whoever, it is no longer a question of where you're from, because we are all Kittitians and Nevisians, all imbued with the same rights, and all entitled to the full fruits of our citizenship. And so I've heard a lot of chatter in the social media, because everybody now is a journalist. And they talk about division in Team Unity. I don't know who's divided, but what I will say to you is that I, and none of these gentlemen up here that I'm aware of, are going to mash up something that is working so well. We are going to keep it together because Team Unity represents the best opportunity for the country of St. Kitts and Nevis to continue the stellar performance that we've had. We are leading, and I want people in St. Kitts and Nevis to get accustomed to that word. We are leading in nearly every facet of human development. St. Kitts and Nevis is ahead of the rest in the sub-region. Economy, human rights, good governance, transparency, low crime, safety and security, you name it, we're leading. It didn't happen by chance. It occurred because you have a team that is dedicated, that is working, that is committed. And so all of those who are preaching divisiveness and want, you know, I engage in colloquialism sometimes, you'll forgive me. But sometimes you and your wife living real good. The neighbor vex. So the neighbor tell your wife something about you. And you know what I say? It is up to you and your wife, if you love your neighbor, to mash up your relationship. Team Unity living good. And we not allow nobody to mash up our relationship. Because we have what it takes, and we've demonstrated that we have what it takes to move this country forward. So Dr. Harris, congratulations, sir, on 5 years as a brilliant Prime Minister and steward of this country. My friend Sean, he has a young people haircut now, but congratulations to him as well. He says he's young. For his role, and to my colleagues, I believe that we have all sought to do the best that we can, and that the successes that we've had could not have been possible without you and your support, without the grace of God and His support. And I would ask that we continue in that vein to stay steadfast, on course. We are on the right track with the right leadership to take this country forward and upwards.